Ahead. All right. The next thing I want to do is share screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Jeff, would you allow me to share, please? That's awesome. Wish I could present. I really.
All right. I changed it.
All right. There's one more thing I wanted to do before we officially start. I want to have a one of my browser windows queued up here. All right. Okay, Jeff, if you would like to start recording. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I'm Chad Lane. I'll go to the camera so you can see me. Hi, everybody. I'm the PI on this grant called whimc, and you're going to learn a little bit about it today. whimc actually stands for What If Hypothetical Implementations in Minecraft. And so we're going to talk about how to use Minecraft as a science and engineering learning environment. We have been at this for several years now. We've given several brown bags in the past. So this is going to be kind of an update. We'll do a little bit of background, but for the most part, we're going to focus on the newest things that have been our focus over the last 6 to 9 months, primarily. You can see we have a lot of partners there, even more than's on this list. I'm not going to say much about the other project components, but I will mention briefly that we worked with Nova. They have a group that focuses on interactive online learning activities called Nova Labs. And there's a whole bunch of really great interactive tools there, games, simulations, just very creative people. And they did a whole lab for us on exoplanet science. And so it's not Minecraft. It is a completely different tool, but it points people to our server. So it provides a kind of a really interactive, engaging experience to show how we find exoplanets, which is a planet that orbits a different star than our own. It's built for about middle school age kids, and it's very good. It's high quality. We've had a lot of traffic, and they are going to do a massive push for it this fall whenever they release a whole new series on exoplanets on the Nova side, on the TV side. So it should be. We should get a lot of attention real soon, and we're gearing up for it and getting ready. So part of what we'll show you today is related to that. University of Maine. The co-PI there is Dr. Neil Cummins, who's a very well-known astrophysicist and astronomer. He's written the second most used textbook in astronomy. He's a great guy. He started this actually because he's been going around giving talks and talking with children and the public about what if questions. What if Earth was different? What if we had no moon? What would Earth look like? What if Earth was a moon of a larger planet like Neptune? What would Earth be like if it was habitable? If the temperature was right and so on. So all of this was his idea, and I got to know him through mutual friends. And I said, well, what if we could actually put kids on the surfaces of those worlds and let them walk around? And he loved the idea, and that's what started all of this, was to make his presentations were more narrative and descriptions and some sketches, and we actually made it interactive and playful, and kids now can go on these worlds and build. We have them build habitats to survive on these crazy places and think about what they'd need to protect themselves from radiation and insane wind and so on. So Neil is a wonderful collaborator, and we've been working on this for a while. The Fab Lab has helped us team up with community partners for running summer camps, including the Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center, which some of you may know. And the final piece of the puzzle is the Fisk Planetarium, where we're collaborating with Perez Diego, and he is an astronomer at the CU Boulder, and he also works at the planetarium, and we're putting together a Minecraft-based astronomy show that will also use what if questions as the basis. And then from that show, they would be told all about our server. And so we've tried to link all these pieces up. And then the Nova Lab would be running on outside of the show on stations there for kids to play with if they wanted. So we're trying to hook all this up, and I would just want to tell you a little bit about what's behind it, but I want to leave as much time as possible for Jeff and Matt, because they have a lot to share. So the first thing I'll say is, you know, this all, for me, thinking about Minecraft as a STEM learning environment, it started when I started watching my son play around 2010. So he's a sophomore in college now, and he still plays. So that's, you know, that's a decade of engagement with this game off and on. But that seems to be the pattern. A lot of kids, we're hiring now undergraduates who grew up with the game. In fact, the lead software engineer on the team just graduated, and we hired him his freshman year. And he was a computer science major because of Minecraft. He was participated in an interview from our alum Sherry Yee, and he said, that's why I'm a computer science major. I taught myself how to program in Minecraft to make plugins and mods, and that's, you know, that's why I'm doing what I do. So he loved this project, and you're going to see his fingerprints all over this thing. You won't know it, but they're there. He did so much and left such a legacy. We've hired him as a consultant now to help the incoming programmers, and he was just ecstatic when I told him we could do that. But anyway, that's what Minecraft does, is it generates excitement. It gets people doing things, very active, very creative. There is sometimes some combat. If you've played the game, you know there's a survival mode, and kids do get into that. But we really emphasized the other aspects of it: building, exploring, interacting with each other, collaborating, which is just fine with all of our kids that play this, because they do. A lot of kids will choose just to play what's called creative mode, where they can just build and do things to express themselves. So we haven't had any kind of tension with the kids who do want to do combat. It's occasionally you'll find them, oh, I'm going to get a sword and armor, but I'm like, it doesn't help you because you can't hurt anyone on our server. So anyway, lots of fun stories with what kids have done, but you can see the connections between Minecraft and STEM are deep. We've got several publications exploring this, and this project definitely fits into this category. This data is now a little old, but I probably don't need to tell you how popular Minecraft is. The number of copies sold, I think, is now up to 170 million. This is a few years, 2016 data. But the point of this little fun little graphic is if you took all the Minecraft purchases and you made them a country, they would be the 12th largest country on Earth. So that's a pretty amazing number of players out there. It's a huge number. And so Minecraft has definitely left its mark. It's the second most popular game in history. Some of you know, so don't answer, but you guys want to take a guess at the #1 most popular video game ever? You're going to say, oh, duh. Some people say Pac-Man, that's close, but not quite. Tetris. So Tetris is like over 400 million copies sold. Nintendo is responsible for that, I think. But yeah, but Minecraft's a pretty solid second place there. And then the rest are pretty far behind as well. So anyway, Minecraft's extremely popular. I want to switch real quick. So you guys are seeing my wallpaper there. I want to switch just to show you this 3-minute video. It says so much in 3 minutes. And you're going to hear Jeff's very soothing and calm voice speak very quickly. We had 3 minutes to do this. This is NSF puts on a STEM video competition every year. And so we've participated in it twice now. This is our second video. But I want to play that for everybody. And I'm a little worried I forgot to share with audio. So let me reshare, guys. So you all that are remote can hear the sound. Okay. So, and did I share screen too? Is it looking okay? Can you see? Thumbs up. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So this video introduces our project. Tells you a whole bunch in 3 minutes. So, oh, wait. Here it is. This is the one I want. Some of you may have seen this when we advertised and asked everyone to watch it and vote.
Chad, I think the remote folks are probably not able to see the video. We're still seeing the PowerPoint.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so let me thank you for pointing it out. And I'm going to share again and yeah, I did not share screen too, so I just did it wrong. Thanks, Jeff. Looking better?
Yeah, I think we're good. We'll find out if we can hear it. Yes.
What if Earth had no moon?
We're not getting audio here.
If Earth never had a moon, the day would be 3 to 4 times shorter since we would have never had the pull of the moon to slow down our spin. A shorter day would cause the winds and weather to be very different, much likely stronger, and there would be no seas. Earth's rotational axis would still be perpendicular to the plane of orbit around our sun. As a result, plant and animal life would have to evolve differently so as to thrive under these windy conditions. The video clips you see here are from an interactive Minecraft server. They're part of what's called Project whimc. What if hypothetical implementations in Minecraft. The goal of whimc is to develop computer simulations connected to informal learning experiences that elicit curiosity and generate interest and engagement in STEM. whimc leverages Minecraft Java Edition as a learning environment for participants to interactively explore the scientific consequences of alternative versions of Earth. These what-if questions include inquiries like what if Earth had no moon, or what if Earth were rotated 90 degrees on its side axis, as well as other emerging astronomy inquiries like what would it take to terraform Mars, or how do we mine on asteroids? Kids get to explore these questions as aspiring scientists and engineers on an integrative server that changes to match their interests. Along the way, they meet characters that help them understand important scientific variables like atmospheric composition or temperature, as well as how to make observations like a scientist. In doing so, they travel to radically different places in and outside of our solar system, like asteroids or exoplanets. Not only is this super cool, but we're also collecting data on how this triggers interest in related areas of STEM. We combine computational data from logs, user pathways, and quest accomplishments with more qualitative assessments like artifact analysis, interviews, surveys, and screen capture. In order to do this, we've partnered with an array of amazing organizations and people to create connected and cohesive informal science learning experiences. They include PBS Nova Labs, where students can learn how we search for exoplanets by looking at transit data, radio velocity, or atmospheric composition in a web-based alien rescue adventure. The Fisk Planetarium, where they can see shows about what-if science scenarios in Minecraft up on the 360-degree dome screen. And through visits by renowned astronomers like Neil Cummins to after-school and summer camp programs. These are run in collaboration with powerful community organizations with kids who might not otherwise run into imaginative astronomy. We've even partnered with Ateneo University in the Philippines to replicate our study, server, and data collection techniques with their community networks. whimc participants were found to engage deeply during exploration of our worlds and when building together. We have materials on our website for you to build your own whimc experience in your classroom or informal learning setting. All of our Minecraft worlds and plugins are open source, and we'd love it if you remixed or added on to what we've done. This year, we're excited to introduce a stage where kids can imagine, plan, and build science-based habitats for survival on extreme worlds. Do you think your exoplanet base will hold up? What are you waiting for? Join and find out.
All right, so we never had audio on our side. So I hope you guys enjoyed that remotely. I tried to do my best Jeff impression. Okay, so this is a picture from that video. So this is kind of what, at Illinois, this is sort of what we're putting together, and a lot of it's already in place. Some of it's under development, but you can see there are several places of the planetarium after school, working with UNCC, and we were collaborating with a company called Learn 01, but I'm not sure, I think they may have folded, but we're still trying to find new partners to fill that gap. Nova Exoplanet Lab is another thing I mentioned. So these are positioned as sort of a place where we engage with kids originally. We show them what we have and we get them excited, and we use our server as a way to bring them all together to explore these worlds, collaborate, and also so we can track what they do. So we get very fine-grained data about where they go on the server, what parts of the maps they see, what observations they make, what command line. There's stuff you can do in the command line too, like to use science tools to measure temperature and to measure air pressure and radiation and so on. And so eventually where this is all going is we're still working on a lot of these back-end tools here. So in making the pedagogical agents that are in there smarter, collecting up different worlds. This is on our to-do list, but letting kids create their own worlds that can then, if they pass muster, can be put on the server for other kids to see. So that is stuff that lies in our future, but we have quite a few of the pieces of this lying around. We have let kids create their own worlds using external tools, but as far as having something built into our system, that's still coming. We've worked hard too on just kids finding our server out of out of off the internet. So they hop on, we have a whole online onboarding sequence where they go to the moon and learn all about the server, and then they gradually earn their way to see the whole hub, and which Jeff will be showing you soon. So this is just quick. Of course, we're not just building something and putting it out there. We are doing a lot of research on how this affects children. So I won't go over each of these, but you can kind of scan them. We're very interested in looking at this through the lens of interest and engagement. So how are these experiences getting them excited for STEM? What impacts does it have on how they feel about these fields, about their interest in pursuing it in the future, coming back to our server and continuing to do these activities? So the theoretical framing for all of our work is that of Renninger and Heedy. So they have, they're both interest and developmental psychologists. So they've spent a lot of time in this field, and a 2016 book is my recommendation if you're curious about all of this work. They synthesized it, and they've articulated how interest develops, and it starts off with what they call situational interest, and evolves into what they call individual interest, and then there's these two sub phases. And so what we're hoping is that we can trigger that interest a lot and get kids really into this. Minecraft supports that because they're already excited to be in Minecraft. And so we hope to kind of usher them through these stages so that at some point they've kind of accepted the STEM kind of activities as part of who they are, part of their identity, which is often associated with high levels of interest. They feel like they're a scientist, or they could be. And so this is our theoretical framing. So all the work we're looking at is we focused a lot on situational interest because it is hard to do longitudinal work in this area. We've had a few opportunities with our summer camps because we have repeat visitors. So when kids come to our camp several times, we really do look at them carefully to see, you know, to what extent previous camps have influenced them. And we do interviews with them to see how they're doing in school and what new topics maybe they want to pursue. But really our goal is to provide an environment where interest can be triggered in whatever STEM area is relevant. The great thing about exoplanet research is it connects to astronomy. You can think about biology on these alien worlds. You can think about engineering if you're going to build habitats on all these places to live. So it really does branch. We learned that lesson early in our camps where the kids just started to make decisions on what they wanted to do. And rather, I mean, informal learning is about pursuit of your interests. And so we became very flexible very quickly. You know, we had this original intent of teaching astronomy, but we really started to realize we need to open this up and let them go in the directions that they want to. It turns out it makes a lot of sense. They love building. That's why they're Minecraft players. So we do have non-Minecraft players come in, and we have to do a little more on the front end to help them. And we always do that, and they always start to enjoy it. But most of them already have a skills in Minecraft, and they really do start showing off their building skills. And then our job then is to nudge them to think about habitability rather than build their dream house, which is you'll find so many swimming pools on some of our habitats. It's in big screen TVs. But that's just a side note. Mostly they are thinking about, is this airtight? Do I have a water source and a heat source? And so that's really what we're trying to go for. So Jeff, are you ready?
Sure.
I am going to hand off to you so you can give us a tour of the server. So the share has stopped.
Okay.
So
this is going to be possibly a little awkward because I'm going to share screen twice because we get to trade off of either fluid video or you could see precise pixels. So we're going to start with precise pixels for the beginning of this. Two things to note before I get into this. One, please stop me if I'm talking too fast or if you have a question. This is informal. You know, it's fine if you have, and I may not pick that up because you're all teeny little dots on my screen here. So Chad, you know, if people are trying to interrupt me, tell me, just, you know, let me know. So the other thing is I have a tendency to go very fast. And so if you miss something or just kind of want to follow up on any of this, we have a website that is pretty good on the hosted by the College of Education, whimc.education.illinois.edu. And you can read about all of these things that we're talking about and see a lot of these things on that website. So, okay, let's see if I can
Oh, and while he's getting set up, Jeff was the director of the CU Fab Lab for 5 years, was it? 4 years? 5
Yeah,
years?
I mean, it depends on. I've officially my title was for 5 years. So
And PhD in informatics from 2016?
2015, community
2015.
informatics high school.
And then now Jeff lives in Denver, and we just had the opportunity to bring him back. So he's working from Denver, but fully on board with the whimc project in the College of Ed. So I just wanted to remember who you were.
No, thank you, Chad. And it's actually been really cool too, in that like we have some partners out here. I mean, the Boulder and the Fisk Planetarium is here, but I'm also gaining more and more of a network. And so hopefully we'll be doing like our Project whimc stuff with one of the libraries in town and that kind of stuff. So it's cool that we, in some ways, COVID didn't change it for us because we already had this international network of people that we're working with, which is neat. Okay, so I'm gonna just do share screen and hopefully people will be able to see some things here. Okay, so I thought I would start with this one. When I full screen this, are you guys all able to see this?
Yeah, looks good here.
Okay, cool. So I taught user experience for 10 years, and I throw that word around in a way that a lot of people don't use it. So a lot of the time when you hear that, they think like usability of like make the button on the app bigger kinds of stuff. I think of user experience as the more reconciled series of experiences, your memory of going through something. And so, and the way you experience it. So this could be like architecture has elements of user experience, or on our server, we're very concerned about the user experience as you go through it. And that can include things like learning and imagination and STEM interest triggers. So I've been coming to this project trying to analyze it and sort of wrap my head around how can we make this better in all these different ways. And so this is one of the ways that I'm also part artist. And so I wanted to express this visually. So as this project has gotten really big, we've been trying to find ways to organize it all. And so this is kind of the way that I've mapped what we're doing. So people will encounter our Project whimc through any number of one of those sites Chad was talking about. Like they might have gone to a planetarium show or gone through the PBS Nova Lab or something like that. And they'll get signed up for our server. And we start them out on this rocket launch facility. They're sort of on Earth. It's almost this kind of narrative thing where they're learning like it's like they're getting ready to be trained as an astronaut and go out into space. And they'll run around and they get to talk to different people. And already we have these opportunities for talking about elements of STEM and space exploration that's not necessarily just being an astronaut. Like for instance, there's a logistics guy in there that they talk to that says, it's really important to be able to just get equipment from place to place. Like that's actually part of what we're doing here. So there are ways that things connect that they might not expect. So they run around and they get excited about some of the cool stuff. There's sort of hints at what's to come. Like there's a guy giving a presentation on mining asteroids, and there's a material scientist talking about space elevators and some of those kinds of things. So they run around that, and then they go up to the moon, and this is where we teach them some of the things we've been working on. So it is surprising how few kids know how to like observe like a scientist. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but like, I don't know what it is about, maybe in the context of science class that they've got like a worksheet and everything's just, structured so much that when they're thinking in this sort of wide open environment, that's actually really hard for them. So a lot of what we're doing is pointing out stuff that they might not realize exists. So we have them learn these science tools, and then we have them learn this observation plugin. These are things that we've added on the Minecraft, and they run around with these encounters. And each of the step of the way, you can see under these purple boxes, I've tried to show the alignments with different learning outcomes for standards, but we're also trying to think outside of that. So when I'm talking about learner user experience, there's also kind of these narrative expectations of inspiring awe of like, whoa, I didn't know people at NASA did that, or thinking about like, how would I build on another world? Or one of the ones I like the most is realizing that you can collect data to help other people. That's a lot of what they're doing on the server is they go on these little quests and then they use that data to solve a problem or help people. And that creates this kind of relevance that you often might not get if you're like just filling out a worksheet or taking a test in, say, a school setting. So anyway, they run around on the moon for a while, and then they get to go explore these what if worlds. And that's been sort of the centerpiece of the grant for the whole time is, what if Earth had no moon, et cetera. We're going to look at some of those in a second. And then we're also trying to expand past that now, which is exciting, of thinking about what would it be like to visit an exoplanet, or Mars is obviously really topical and hot right now. So we've been thinking about how do you build habitats on Mars, because we're in the next 10 years probably going to see people trying to build habitats on Mars. So pretty cool stuff. This is kind of the lay of the land of what we've been trying to do. Okay, well, I'm looking at my list of stuff. All right, so we're gonna, I'm gonna stop my screen share and do it with the blurry mode. So here we go. Let's see if I can do this again. Share screen. All right. And I don't know if the share sound, I think it'll be fine. Everybody can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Perfect.
just making sure. All right, so let's see if I can find Minecraft. Here's Minecraft. Okay, so participants will, I have to de-op myself, hold on. I'm constantly doing work on this thing and I forget my status, but so participants get to go to other planets. And so I just thought I would show, some of you may have seen this in previous presentations, but one of the early stages is they go to the moon and they get to like land here and realize, whoa, I'm on the moon, this is pretty crazy. They get these missions as they go along. So we have to talk to Roger and then suit up. And we go through here, we've already been assigned a, oh, all right. See, I'm a creator of the server, so it can do things to me that it's not supposed to do. There we go. All right. So here's Roger, and we first come in and they're learning that they get to talk to people to get these quests. So it's kind of this gamified thing. It is a little bit assignment-y, but it's hopefully fun as they do this. And as they talk to these people, they get to learn about the environment they're in. So we go through our airlocks here, and one of the first activities they have to do is they got to get in their spacesuit. And this is something that like kind of seems very obvious, but like a lot of kids don't realize that the moon doesn't have any oxygen or atmosphere at all. There's nothing out there. And one of the most mind-blowing things for them is that like the air provides pressure, like because you wave your arms around, it feels like there's nothing, right? Like air has so little resistance relative, but like we actually really need air pressure to live. And so part of what we're trying to get them to understand is like what the moon environment is like. So they get suited up in their spacesuit here, and they have to talk to some of these people. As they go along, they can advance in this quest book. So we have to, actually, I think I missed my first step here because I'm presenting to all of you. I think I had to talk to, here we go. Yeah, so I talk to each of these people and they sort of tell me what to do as I go along. And eventually they say, all right, go outside and jump because you're supposed to find the main moon base. And so if I jump outside, you'll notice I have the lower gravity, which is pretty cool. The kids can right away observe this ability to moon jump. And this is one of the biggest reasons that we have chosen to use Minecraft Java Edition. One of the #1 questions we get is, well, why aren't you doing this on education on tablets? And it's because education can't do things like change the moon into Earth or jump around with lower gravity and this kind of stuff. So we've really run with this as much as we can. So I'm going to run along the surface here and show one of the examples of things they get to learn about. So that pressure example I was talking about, here's an example of a quest giver guy. So I go up here and there's this Highland guy and he tells me, you know, that they're worried about radiation and that they have to pressurize things. Can I go check this measure to help them out? He's checking to see if this building has been sealed. And so I can go in here, it gives me this hint and I can type /pressure. And there we go. I have checked the pressure inside and we have 101.3 kilopascals. And if I run outside and I do that same measure, you'll notice it's 0 outside. So we have these different regions that have different numbers set. And in this case, I would have to help him program the computer to make sure that we know that the building is pressurized. So they have all sorts of quests that are like this. So I'm actually going to go now. I'm not going to run through the whole server today. Where I'm going to try to show you some of the newer, cooler things, and also leave time for questions. So I'm actually going to skip around. But normally the kids would have to complete these quests before being able to get to the next stages. So we're trying to make sure they learn some prerequisite skills before they're able to zip zap and zoop around. All right, let's see here. Colder sun habitable strip. So I'm not NOP anymore. Hold on. This is what I get for de-opping myself.
I'll mention that inside that moon base, there's a whole bunch of things going on. So we have a room that grows trees and plants and fruits, and there's fish in there. So we had to work with our scientists on the project to help us, like which fish would have the best chance of surviving in lower gravity and which trees would have the best chance of growing inside of an arboretum or whatever we set up in there. So Yeah, so it's really been a fun collaboration with those scientists, and all the readings Jeff was just showing you, all of those we vet with them constantly. You know, what's a believable radiation level of radiation inside, outside, and talking about the different barriers you might have.
Yeah, and Chad, this is actually a little bit advanced of what I was going to show, but we've got so much content on here now that we're trying to create these sort of content guides for each world that an educator can use, and then we can also have cross-checked by our astronomers and experts in various fields. And so there's all that cool stuff you can observe on the moon base, but now pretty much every world has a set of things like that we're trying to figure out. And so you can imagine if you were a teacher, you could have something like this. We're going to try to make it prettier. Right now it's a Google Doc because we've got a bunch of people working on it. But you know, where are the places that they can observe things? Who are the people that they're going to talk to? How do those relate to different quests that they're on? Later, Matt is going to hopefully show us the grid tracking, like exploration scores, but getting data for our AI team to know where are the salient points of interest on the map. What are the kinds of things we want them to observe? So this is Earth without a moon, which I'm actually not showing. You can kind of get a sense of this. And then down here, my favorite part right now, because I'm also an educator, is how can you have classroom activities that parallel this? Of what can you do if you're playing whimsy in your classroom, but you also get to do these hands-on kinds of things. We've been doing a lot of that in our camps where we find that it enhances things. So anyway, this is Earth with colder sun, and if I come out here, we can kind of see already we have this crazy looking orange red sun. And here's Jorge, who's actually one of our astronomers, and we can go talk to him, and he would give us a series of quests and things we can do, like we're supposed to go observe. And so I'm actually going to show that now. So let's say I wanted to observe this orange sun here. I can type /observe. And this is something that we've recently done. So originally with whimsy, you would type /observe, and then you would just write something and it would make an observation. And that's something you can do, and that's where we want to work people up to. But what we noticed when I was talking about kids not really knowing how to observe and what to observe, we've been trying to structure and scaffold a little bit more to change that experience. And there are a variety of reasons to do this. One, it helps us sort of convey the kind of agendas we care about. It two, gets us better data about like what kids are actually internalizing. And three, it helps us scale it down, is that younger kids are often less equipped to think imaginatively, or maybe actually they're often very imaginative, but they're imagining not in the world of science and maybe in the world of other things. And so we want to sort of bring their mind to the stuff that can be relevant. So this gives us a series of kinds of observations, and Matt's going to hopefully show us some data with this, but I type /observe and I can pick one of these. So I could do an inference or a description, or I could ask a question, or just write an uncategorized observation. So if I do a descriptive, I then have some choices here. There is or are, the world is. So let's pick, there is a small red colored sun, and I'm going to confirm that. And this lays down an observation for us. And so you could have typed that, and that's actually where we want to get them to be, is that they can just automatically type these things. But we sort of train them. We give them examples of here's how you compare one thing to another, or here's the kinds of things we want you to pay attention to. We've been working on scaffolding that process. But this one's also really neat. So this is a tidally locked planet. And I can actually fly up here. So normally kids can't fly around like I can. I'm Superman because I'm in charge of the server. But you can kind of see as I run along, and actually I'll just fly as we do it, the environments change. And this is because the one side of the planet is always facing the sun. And so there's this ring edge on the edge where it's sort of like sunset all the time, where it would be possible to live, where you could have biomes that match those on Earth. And kids can run across this and sort of see that narrow ring edge as it gets to then the cold side. And if we run onto the other colder side where there wouldn't be anything, here we go. It is dark and it is snowy and cold. And they can do things like check the temperature here and see it's really, really cold out. And we're adding some other stuff now, like they can run down underground and learn about like, all right, if you had to live on this side of the planet in the frigid cold, what would that look like? And so down here, we've got like a farm that has been set up, and this is their shelter where it's warm enough for them to live underground in this environment.
Hey, Jeff, while you're walking around, can I say a little bit about what we talk about in the camps around this map?
Yeah, and I'm going to show a presentation with it.
Oh,
There we
right
go.
on. Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna, you got to present. Were you gonna do this about why?
No, you should say it, but I'll show.
We asked kids if the sun was cooler, where would Earth need to be for it to be habitable? And after some thinking, sometimes we say, would it be the same, closer, further? They think about it. They do usually conclude we should be closer to the sun if it's cooler for Earth to be habitable. So they figure that out. And then the next step is to realize that when these bodies get to a particular point, they start to lock orbits, sort of like the moon, always the same side of the moon faces us at all times, because they've kind of reached that stabilization point. That's what would happen here. And so that's what happens on this Earth. You get a hot side, you get a cold, dark side, and then you could only live in this part, this strip around the middle. So they get to see that first, though. You know, they get to say, why is there a bunch of desert here and a bunch of snow over here? So they get to see that and start wondering why it's like that. And then we get into the explanations. And so I'm sorry, Jeff, you were queued that up, but I'm so excited to talk about that.
No, it's better that you say it, Chad. I was just going to show that, like, it's not just that they're exploring it in the game, that we're also showing it in parallel in other settings. So that's 100% it. And I often like doing the thing where they have to collect some data and then they try to figure out, what does this data mean? Or they make some observations and we say, all right, well, why do you think that is? And there's, rather than just kind of like lecturing and giving them the answer, we're oftentimes helping them sort of work through this composite of things they've collected. And for that one in particular, pretty much any of these where there's planetary bodies, we often have kids, and I should just show a picture, but like kids holding balls, or we have inflatable planets now. We've gotten a little more high tech, and they have to figure out how do they move around each other and how do they relate to each other. So it gets the sort of kinesthetic learning components too, where they're not just always on the computer, they're kind of up and also interacting. So let's see if, oh yeah, I wanted to show this as another example. So, we use Minecraft, but there are lots of good tools out there. And sometimes Minecraft isn't always great at getting at things like, what are the positions of planets? So this is a universe sandbox, which is another program you can use to simulate like how the Earth is moving around the sun here. I don't know if this is fluid enough for everybody to see, but so I've got it paused right now, but you can, sorry, Chad.
It's pretty good.
It's good? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we could do things like change the rotational period of the Earth or its actual tilt or all these different kinds of variables and then show them this in a different setting. So I don't know, let's give Earth a really big mass. We blow up Earth a bunch and then I don't know what that's gonna do. Oh, we became Jupiter. Oh God. So, all right, maybe I shouldn't, that's what it does. If you blow up Earth so much, it becomes a black hole or Jupiter or something like that. But then you can test this. Earth is now a sun. So, wow. And then all the things are starting to orbit around Earth. I obviously did not plan this demo. So is that Mars that just flew by Earth there? Yeah. But they could then ask these kinds of what if questions and sort of see them in the game and also see them out of the game in other settings, which is fun to do.
Oh, Chris has a question.
Quick
we got a question, Jeff.
Yeah, sure. So would you build the curriculum around using or asking the educators as well to use something like Sandbox in addition with the Minecraft material that you give them?
So what I'm trying to do, or what we've been trying to do lately, is we have the core that is the Minecraft server and the what if worlds. And then there's lots of things you can add on to it. And like on the website, there's a resources for educators section. And it's almost like building with Legos of like, we've got a lot of ideas of like, you could use the Sandbox as part of your classroom activity. Likewise, you could come up with something else. Like one of the activities is on Earth with no moon, there's a greenhouse and the characteristics in the greenhouse are different than outside. Well, you can imagine the kids might actually be able to literally go measure those characteristics in a greenhouse in their school. And I want educators to be able to come up with applied and related learning. This is how these STEM interests trigger. So I think it's cool that we can start and play with our Minecraft server, but then also then build out and do these other really neat things too. That's sort of the idea of the open source, right? Take what we've got, remix it, make it bigger, etc. The core being the Minecraft experience that is very, very COVID compatible, which is really helpful. Were there other questions?
I had a quick question. Maybe you covered this, but I missed it. I'm wondering if the major like goal of this is to like implement it in curriculum or pedagogies in STEM, like in K through 12?
It is a goal of mine. So I think that the goal of the project, we have research goals, for the NSF grant, it's the research questions Chad was saying earlier. We're trying to understand how STEM interests happen, how they are sustained, where the triggers are, et cetera. But it's most of us are passionate about changing education, right? And the reason I've been teaching in informal education is that often schools are actually not the best place to have these kinds of discoveries and interests. So it is cool that we can be working with Ateneo, where they have teacher partners all over, like literally every kid in the whole Philippines has a Minecraft account, and they can work with schools all over the place to like actually do this in classrooms. Likewise, we're doing this stuff for fun with libraries and for kids that are just doing this at home because they've been stuck at home with COVID or whatever it is. It can happen in lots of settings. So my agenda is both formal and informal. And Chad might want to state, I don't know, Chad, do you want to add on to that?
Thank you. Just a little bit. Yeah, this is actually research funded by AZLE, which is Advancing Informal Science Learning at NSF. So yeah, our primary target are museums, community centers, planetariums, at-home learning. That said, NSF also encourages crossover. So that's why it's helpful for us to label what content, what standards it links into, because innovative teachers will take this and run with it. Even if they use it in after school, which is also technically an informal learning environment, some of them might want to use it during the school day, and that's great. It's just not it's not what we're trying to do, but we love it when creative adopters take it and run with it. And we've had a few teachers ask about it and, get on the server and play with it. So if that becomes one of our outcomes, and Jeff is doing a lot to make that possible, we'll be really excited. But it's not required for us.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of that just has to do with the nature of like how schools teach, right? Like this is very project-based learning, hands-on inquiry, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't lend itself so well to like memorize this out of a book, take a test, right? And I know schools are working against that, but often that's how schools are, or just functionally. Like I had a previous NSF grant where we worked with all the public middle schools in Champaign-Urbana, and we were going to do all this cool makerspace learning. And one of the things I realized is that the STEM classes in Unit 4 are 30 minutes long. You take 5 minutes for setup on the computer and takedown on the computer, you've already lost most of your school time. And like the kids' digital literacy was all over the board. And so a lot of this stuff doesn't translate that well. And like we found that it was really hard to change school systems, but it's not as hard to have new programs in libraries or have new after school centers, et cetera. So I often was just going where I could make the change and match where the learner needs were versus trying to do the official thing, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to share again, if that's okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we're coming up. I got a little over 20 minutes to go total. So whatever you're able to show in a few minutes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to show another couple of the worlds that are cool, and then Matt needs to. I want to make sure Matt's got time. This is my NOAA. This is if Earth were the Earth were like the small thing, and the moon was really big. So we're on the close side of that. So you look up and there's this giant moon in the sky, and it looks like Neptune, and it's actually creating an eclipse, and everything's in the dark, which is one of the cooler simulations. So this one's new since like the last time the project was shared. If I sink down into the water here and I type things like pressure, oops, I have to spell pressure right. We get a pressure at that level underwater there, and if I do it again up here, it's actually less. And we can have kids understand things like water pressure goes up the further you go down. Our simulation is based around being able to have these things adjust. So here they're going to the other side of the planet. They're in a shuttle. This is a little loading buffer because we want to make sure it can load the moon, which I'm hoping will work right. Here we go. And actually, Evan has been adding things. Evan's one of our College of Ed's master students. But here you can see now we're on halfway around the planet. We're looking at it, and we can see the giant moon, Neptune-like moon here on the other side. And there's all this volcanic activity because when you have a big moon, the planet gets sort of squished out as one of the tidal results. And we can do things like measure tides. And here we go. The tides are greater than Earth if I type that in. And then
I have not seen that yet. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have like every variable imaginable. So like gravity or like I don't know. So you can do science tools, measure, and then it gives this giant list. But these are all arbitrary. Like we could actually add one, and I can even do it live, which is crazy. So if the kids were like, "What would this variable be?" You could actually have them go out and try to look up what that would be, and we could like add it in the game live as part of a classroom activity. There's some pretty cool stuff that's been fun. And then I'm going to go zip over to the hub. So when they go through the training, they get to go to this space station here. And the space station is neat because it's full of like all these different encounters. So you can go to the what if worlds, but there's also stuff like, I don't know, they can learn about some of there's questions they could ask. Over here, this is Anjali. She actually is a real astrophysicist who works at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She's in the PBS Nova Lab, and she's actually asked me to create this character for her in the game. And she's always talking about environmentalism. That's her shtick in the game, is every time. And so here she's talking about how they have to recycle the same systems in the space station. But one of her big points is that like you don't have to just be one thing in life. You can be an environmentalist, and you can also be an astrophysicist, which is an important value she wanted to convey. And we were interested in having characters like this, where they're like real life people that kids could relate to. So it's not just, you know, fictitious video game characters. Anyway, I'm going to run upstairs here, and we'll go take a look at one exoplanet. So once they explore some things, they're allowed to go upstairs. Here we have Mars, which we could actually kind of look at too. It's just not all the way done. But here's the PBS Nova Lab. So they learned how to detect exoplanets. And there's kind of this question of like, well, what would it be like to explore one? And this is something we'll never really be able to do in our lifetimes, but it would be neat. So Gleiss often gets a lot of attention. We're actually redoing this one, but kids like it because it looks like ice on fire. So here we have this world that is just flaming ice. And the guy here asks us to check the altitude because we have to put a laser probe that's going to test the surface that's going on there. And I'll quickly zap over to Mars. Let's see. Is it?
I'll make a quick comment there. One of the, I don't know if you've seen in headlines, like astronomers discover an Earth-like planet. So the devil's in the details. Earth-like might mean it's twice the size of Earth. That's pretty Earth-like, you know. So it's always amusing when I see headlines about we found another Earth and it's never habitable. It's never. So we're along when we want them to know that. We want them to know every planet we know about is terrible for people, including Mars. I mean, Mars is a terrible place to try to go live.
So that's been our build challenge with the recent camps, is they get to go to Mars and build these shelters. So here we have examples. These are based off of some of the actual submissions to NASA of like, we don't want to take a lot of material with us to Mars. So taking the apparatus to 3D print based on like polymers and then the Mars dust is one of the things we're likely to do. And so these are actual buildings that are based on some of the ones that might really be built there. And so we had kids that were making Mars shelters this past summer. So let's see here. I think I've shown, oh yeah, I've got one other cool one. Let's see if I'll show this, and then I'm going to turn it over. This is one I'm pretty excited about that's also not really done. But this question of if there were life elsewhere in the galaxy, what would it look like? And one of the benefits of things like a game is you can simulate ways of being that wouldn't be possible otherwise, right? So we've been shrunk down to a microbial scale now, and we can't see it because I'm an op, can we? Well, you can kind of see maybe through the murkiness. There's these like, it's heat vents, and there are these like, here's a tardigen. There's these very small creatures that are coming up out of the heat vents, and this is like what life may look like on another planet, is underwater, living next to a heat vent in a very, very small scale. Because I'm a level designer, my settings are different, so we can't see it like the kids would see it right now. But it's a pretty cool looking world. And so we can come up with these really radical, wild simulations. So I think I pointed out most of the other, there's Educator Resources. We've been focusing a lot on activities where the kids can proactively build, and also building better curriculum and then better data that the kids can collect that we can then use to train our AI agent. So a lot of you saw like the little people we're talking to throughout. Right now, they're just scripted. But what we want to do is build a more intelligent system beneath this that, based on what the kids are designing and doing, it helps tell them what to do and it changes their experience. And there are a few ways this can go. It can be things like, hey, your habitat has a hole in it, you're going to lose all your oxygen, as well as stuff like, using something called data packs, we can actually have a world that they've given parameters to that is then unfurled before them. So like we can actually generate a world like its atmosphere is going to be this color because they chose these chemicals that are going to be in it, and it generates it live. Like we're working on stuff like that are some pretty cool tools. So anyway, I've talked a lot. I imagine there are questions, and I know Matt has cool things to show us and tell us too. So I want to turn it
switch to
over.
Matt. If you'd like to ask Jeff a question while we're switching, please have at it.
Oh, Michelle had to leave, but she's wanted to play games. This is so cool.
Oh. All right.
I'm just going to
I'm going to switch sides with Matt here and then share what is going on. Come on now. Okay, and one more step. Okay, take it away, Matt. Oh, I'll try not to fall.
Yeah, I'll try not to navigate these tripwires. Okay, cool. So my job on the grant is to wade through all the data we have, and we have a ton of data. I'm not sure if it was mentioned previously, but we collect a lot of data through hosting summer camps. So we invite kids to come and play on our server. But we also have a public server that's accessible to anybody that wants to sign up for it. And so we collect data in both ways, but I primarily focus on the data we collect from the summer camps because we do collect a lot of log data, how kids play the game, observations they make, how they explore, how they like place blocks, what kind of blocks they use, the quests that they take up in the game. And so that's all that's collected from playing in the game. So that's primarily what we get from the public server, not really this other stuff. But when we have these in-person events, we can actually collect field notes on how kids are acting and engaged during the camp. This year was a new thing. We had a drawing, so we had kids draw exoplanets. And so this kind of gives us an idea of what they understand and how they can use drawing as a way to kind of like conceptually, I guess, show us what they think about these different worlds that they're seeing and how they can make their own. We interview all the kids in these camps and asking them questions about like school, how they play Minecraft, as well as basically their overall interest in science, as well as questions about identity and how do they see themselves as a science person? What does science actually mean to them? So the interviews are just really to get a grasp of like their overall STEM interest. Similarly, we do that through surveys too. So we have multiple points of data to measure interest. And then we have what we call ICANNs, which is another kind of measure of interest, but also of knowledge. And so these are prompts, just asking kids, so, okay, you've played on this map that has an Earth without a moon. What does that mean? Like, what does it look like? Just tell us a little bit about that. So it's to kind of consolidate their knowledge in a very short, like 1 or 2 sentences about the things they've seen on these maps. I'm going to go here just very briefly. I want to mention, so this project is several years old. So we've actually been collecting data for a long time. And so I'm just going to say a couple real quick things. So when it comes to using video games for research, one of the first questions people always ask is, okay, especially video games for learning, okay, how about kids that don't actually play video games, or in this case, that don't actually play Minecraft? How do you know they're actually getting something out of this? And it's a really important question. And it's one we pay close attention to at our camps. And so we definitely have kids that don't play video games really much. And we have usually several kids that have never played Minecraft. But I will say through all these interviews, observations, how they answer the different conceptual questions, we find that throughout the camp, it's really not a barrier to kids understanding the concepts that are ingrained into these maps that we've created. And we also look at this through the lens of interest too, how playing this game can trigger interest, we call it. And so we find that no matter what level of interest kids have in STEM, we do find our server is actually able to either help continue to develop an interest that's already kind of existing and developed, as well as trigger interest for new learners who really don't care much about STEM, but to kind of get them thinking about it a little bit. And so I think all of this data we've collected kind of goes and reinforces some of these ideas that, you know, this is an accessible environment regardless of experience playing games. and it's also can promote the development of interest. And one thing, we were able to use it in the pandemic, and we did it remotely, and we still found consistent results in terms of triggering interest, as well as learning from playing on the server, even during a pandemic, which shows that this can be used well in remote settings too. But that's not nearly as fun. So this is some images from this past summer. We did some data collection at UNCC, is Urbana Neighborhood Connection Center. It's in very close by in Urbana, serving mostly students from the Urbana public schools during the summer. And they host a ton of different camps. We're just one of many camps that are hosted at this center. And so this just kind of shows we spend most of the time playing Minecraft. We do have discussions about the worlds. We try and see these inflatables were something we did this year that all the kids love. They're all volunteering, wanting to come up and demonstrate, what are these different patterns look like if Earth, how close is it going to be if the sun is colder? What if there's no moon? What if Earth is a moon to a bigger planet? All these different scenarios. We're using inflatables to help kind of demonstrate. The kids actually love that. And so these camps are usually about 5 days long. So 1 week, and usually about 3 hours each day. And we spend, again, a majority of those 3 or 4 hours in Minecraft. Just quick, so our data, our samples are quite small. So on average, we really only see probably no more than 20 kids in one of these camps over the summer, but we do collect a ton of data. So again, they're all middle schoolers, so average age is about 13. Half of them tend to be female. There's pretty good female representation in these camps, and a majority of them identify as Black or African American. Okay, so I mentioned we do interviews with all the kids, and these interviews are used to get a feel for their interest in science. And so what we do is we go through all the interview transcripts and we pull episodes we think are representative of interest in STEM. And so this past summer, out of the 21 students, we pulled a total of 205 STEM episodes from the interviews, which on average would be about 10 per student. Of course, it varies quite a bit. And then so we code these, myself, as well as one of the undergrads on our team who helps me with a lot of the data analysis. And we got an agreement of 0.78, so strong agreement using a code. And this code really looks at what kind of interest behaviors are they showing in their interviews. So like information seeking behavior, going out and after camp, looking up more things about space. So we asked them about that. That's a really big sign that it's triggered some sort of interest, that they're voluntarily going out and looking for more information. How they share information from the camp with their friends and family, we also look for. Affect is kind of just like saying, I really like doing this. Like, I really like this part of the camp. I find space very interesting. So saying things like that. And then also how they identify with science. And also when they talk about learning from Minecraft, and they explicitly say, oh man, I remember from this map, we saw the Earth was on a new moon. There's really strong winds. I thought that was really cool. So also what they're learning from Minecraft. These I haven't done yet for this year, but this kind of looks at, it answers the question of how our camps can trigger interest. So we look at all these camp sessions. We have these interest trigger codes that are similar to the ones I showed you, but there is some variation. And this is based on the work of Anne Renninger. And then are these, based on the field notes, are these STEM interest episodes present throughout all these sessions? Here's some examples of the different drawings that we had this year. They vary quite a bit in terms of quality, but it was meant to be kind of fun, but it's also interesting to see and take kind of models for understanding illustrations, especially so this is a pulled from a model looking at physics and chemistry, but how do they position the planets? What perspective are you looking at? Do they like diagram them, or do they see there's a lot of arrows kind of pointing to contextualizing and connecting different things on the one on the left? So it's kind of interesting. This is what I'm working on right now. Yeah.
Quick question. Do you guys, take in the information about what grade level, age, and all that stuff as well too?
Yeah. So
are these two separate grades? I would assume. The two things.
So it varies. So we're looking at mostly middle school students. So the age varies anywhere from 10 to 15 usually. So these two, one is, I know the one on the left was somebody who's going into a freshman year of high school, I think. And the other one I think was maybe 11 or 12. So there's some variation in age between these two drawings. I did mention, so these are kind of knowledge prompts, and so these are some answers that you would see. And like, you know, what would Earth be like without a moon? Please explain that. Colder sun. Provide your own what if question. And we kind of code these based on, you know, what kind of answers are provided. Is a nonsense answer? Do they try and answer it, provide some evidence? You know, what we really want to see are inferential answers that are saying, okay, Earth without a moon would be like this, and here's why I think it would be like that. But those tend to be pretty rare. Jeff showed a little bit about in-game observations. Here are some examples. And so we code these based on their quality. Again, are they nonsense? Are they kind of lower level? It's just like, okay, this is what I see. I see a pond. Then we get descriptive, or a little bit higher we consider. So like, this place does not stop raining. Then comparative, you know, or saying like, oh, compared to the last world we saw, this one is actually much bigger, something like that. All the way to what we want to see again are inferential. For example, like I assume the stone is here because the water type moved, actually providing a reasoning why it looks the way it does. There's the code. Just real quick, from this past year, we had 270 total observations, a majority of which were descriptive. And comparing that with our observations from 2019, when the last time we were in person, we actually saw improvements. So we want to see more descriptive. Ideally, we want to see more inferential, but those actually decreased a little bit. But we want to reduce the number of factual observations, just saying, okay, I see pigs. So descriptive, we actually see moving in the right direction. The kids are actually trying to make sense of the world. We look at exploration patterns. To me, this is one of the more exciting data points we have. But one of these maps shows, you see the lines on it, the black line shows all the areas that somebody playing on the server has visited on this map. It tells you how many blocks they've covered. And the exploration metric is a number out of 100. So we cut this into a grid of 100 blocks and say, all right, out of those 100, how many did they visit? So for example, an exploration metric of 29 is pretty good. And as well as an exploration metric of 33 on this moon map too. And so overall this year we saw across 10 maps that we spent the most time on average, kids explore about 12 to 13 out of 100 of the blocks. And then again, that's on average. And certain kids are going to be exploring a lot more and others a lot less. And what I'm very interested in is like, how does the student's overall interest in science predict how they play the game? Are they exploring more? Are they making better observations if they have this existing interest? I think. And so what we're doing here is building interest profiles. So like I said, we have all this data and we're going to take it. I'm going to say, okay, here's the number of interest episodes from your interview, your survey score, on average, how many observations do you make per world, average exploration per world, and we just keep filling this out. So we have this very detailed understanding of what interest looks like and how they play, and how that influences gameplay. And I think that's all I have.
So yeah, I don't have any concluding slides other than I was going to add that, our upcoming work, we're really trying to make those agents in the world smarter. Right now, they just kind of spit text at you. But I've got 2 students that have an AI background, and I've done a lot with pedagogical agents in my career prior to coming to Illinois. So we're going to try to make them more interactive and provide more feedback and hints on how to engage on the server more effectively and how to find things. And so that's one big task. And then I mentioned also some of these more advanced tools like world building and the ability to contribute a new map to the server. So things like that are coming next for us in our last year of the project. So if anybody has any questions, we're happy to continue chatting.
Have you looked at inviting parents to play on the public server along with their children, since
Not specifically, but we certainly reach out to parents and they know all about it. And they, in fact, we can't have them in our study without their permission because of how IRB works.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't. That's a particular angle you take on a lot of proposals where you say you're going to support, parent-child learning together. We chose summer camps, which is typically a group of kids, and then we also have the individual learner. But I think it'd be an exciting way to move forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few parents just play anyway. But it is not a specific part of our research questions or anything. But a lot of good things can happen there. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
Chad, we have evidence that some parents and kids have joined the random server, like that we're not through
Oh,
like
cool.
a camp or something. So they're at the same time. We've been paying attention only to kid data though, so I can't really speak too much. I could tell you about quest accomplishment maybe, but that's kind of all I've got on parents. So, and I'm not also sure if they're parents or not. So, yeah, I mean, we know they're above the age of the kids, but they, it could be a brother in college who, I don't know what the.
Chris?
I found it really interesting that you guys like took the actual drawings that they produced inside the summer camps. Would you guys also possibly think of, maybe having students take like research notes as well as a possible kind of idea to kind of track their understanding of what they're learning and throughout their environment through their experience? And I think it also help with them to develop those research tools that you guys are talking about as well.
I think Jeff should answer that. Research notebook.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, Matt is just as much in on this as I am. During our camps, we this year I'm a teacher, so I'm into things like worksheets. So we had worksheets where they were filling out science variables, and one of the quests I was literally adding today is called baseline, and the idea is that they're taking baseline variables down about Earth that they can then compare about other planets elsewhere. And we've been talking about different ways of doing that. Something that Matt mentioned that I really like is that in the game, you just type /pressure and you then get a read on the pressure, but you don't understand how a real scientist actually measures pressure. There's like an apparatus, a device that does that. And we've been trying to think about like both collective data that kids put together, which could be a classroom activity or maybe something on the server, as well as helping them understand the process of collecting that data. Like the process of being a scientist. It's not just, I mean, some scientists do literally type in a computer and get a result, but a lot of them have, some other set of tools and things they're using. So we've been trying to make that deeper and better. And Matt, I don't know if you've got more you'd want to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of like giving each kid a notebook at the beginning of the.
Oh yeah, like a physical.
Yeah,
physical
physical,
thing, because I think everything right now is really tied into the gameplay that they have, and as soon as they leave, you want to keep that excitement and expression and motivation outside of the room as well too. So I feel like when they're writing down like physical hand notes and coming back to it, they're kind of building on an actual physical skill, whereas kind of like everything's pertained to the learning environment when they're on Minecraft. So
I think our big challenge there is getting them to do it.
Oh, yeah.
They're not in school, but they certainly embraced the drawing. They kind of enjoyed that, and we got some silly drawings, but we got some serious ones too. So I think it does make a lot of sense to look at that as a potential source of data. But it's like a lot of things. We want them to learn science because it's part of a fun experience that they are inherently motivated to do. So we have these ideas and like making observations. It's like, at the beginning, it was like pulling teeth to get them to do it. It was really a problem. It's like, please make observations. Here's some candy. We did it all. And I think it's getting there now. Like we unlock the next level of the space station if they do certain things that we ask them to do. And so I think we're getting there and making it more kind of part of the game mechanic, if you want to call it that. But it's for everything, every good idea we have about learning, it's the next step is how do we make it a coherent part of the overall story and fun.
We're out of time actually, but if you, I don't want to keep people past. You should. I'm sure they'll stick around.
Yeah,
for a minute
for sure.
I just want to let people go if they need to go on.
I'm sorry we went long.
No, it's okay. But thank you. Well, just thank you guys.
All right, thanks, Cynthia. Thanks for sticking it out, everybody.
Yeah. Sorry.
Next to last one.
Yeah, you still ask your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Here.
okay.
Yeah,
so,
email us.
I remember playing this when like before coming here like just visiting, and I think I did the what if Earth had no moon, and that was really interesting. But one thing that I missed was that the trees were really flat, and I wondered if that just had to do with like the low graphics of the game, because I feel like that's inherent with Minecraft, and so you know, how do you overcome that? And then my other question was when we were doing the demo, someone said, or he said that like you're observing that the sun is really small, but if you've never played the game before, how do you, like, that felt really relative. How do you know that that's smaller than usual? So yeah, those were like, how do you overcome those?
Sure,
Especially to those who don't play Minecraft.
Those are great questions, and we have some initial answers to them. The first one is that the level of graphics that we have, it definitely is a factor. And so the good thing is the kids that play Minecraft are already comfortable with that. They already know it. The ones that are new get used to it. I mean, they quickly learn. But the low fidelity can cause a problem when we want to model certain phenomena. And so one of the places where we just completely failed was with the tides. So the tides would change dramatically without a moon. And we just can't show that in Minecraft. Now the trees, though, the trees actually, you saw trees that were shorter and wider.
Right.
And most kids see that immediately. And the reason that was like that is because if you take the moon away, Earth spins at about 3 times as fast and the wind becomes profound. And so the trees, if they were to exist on that planet, would need to be real short and wide and strong to hold up.
Yeah.
Birds would be more muscular if they existed. All of these consequences of it. The mountains are smoother on that map. Now, here's the key to answering your question, though, is, and this is something that we're really working on making it a little more smooth. We have a map that is Minecraft's best version of Earth that we could come up with. So everything's as normal as possible. So if we can properly leverage that and get them to go on there and pay attention, they would see like, okay, here's what the sun is supposed to look like. Here are what trees are supposed to look like. And then they compare it to that. That's hard to do though, because they're not going to walk around and memorize and study everything on our Earth map. And so that's a kind of a, how do we get that to be reliable and consistent is sort of an open question. But that's our attempt to give them that baseline Earth experience and hope that they see the things we want them to see.
You could have like a tutorial section where they're on the normal Earth, they learn how to like use these like other measurement tools and things you might want to build in also. So they have maybe not like force them to like make all these observations, but just at least have the opportunity to like do that and then maybe be able to transport back there whenever they wanted to like, it's like, oh, this seems strange. Let me compare it to the other one I saw and see if it's different. I don't know.
No, we could. In the camps though, one of the problems was it's just not fun.
Yeah.
They go back to Earth and you're like,
They get on the Earth map and they're like, well, why are we here? This is boring.
Earth is fun too.
Especially if kids have played before.
They wanna
It's
see
just
crazy stuff.
It's mostly an empty map, so there's not a lot to do except just walk around and look around. We do actually have an observation tutorial, but again, I think that they're not always very engaged with that.
yeah, I think you guys could also probably leverage gameplay, like just have them like, you know, have like one of you guys play the game and talk about the learning experience, and then they come into the camp, they have kind of like a preemptive like understanding of what everything is, and they then get to like really take advantage of all the tools that you guys are using as well too.
And what's interesting, I think, with that is we do have repeat campers. So this is
They're
their
even
fourth time
leaders
actually
and stuff.
doing the camp, and it's interesting to look at what they are noticing, what they're observing, how they're playing. And they tend to remember some of these things. They remember those trees being short. They remember the wind is like really high on no moon. To see if they're making those same observations or if they're actually moving on and being more purposeful with their observations and explorations is one thing we're kind of looking at now.
I was wondering if during the regular Earth, like you're exploring the regular Earth, and that is really guided in terms of what you should be observing. If you were to, you know, once they start looking at the other types of worlds and you don't need to guide them as much, they can fall back on what they did in the previous. Like, does that make sense?
in terms of what, fallback, like in observations or?
Yeah, so if like when you're first observing the normal Earth and the first thing I tell you is go look at the sun.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so when they are observing this new place, maybe they would default. When they don't know how to observe, maybe they would default into, well, this is what the tutorial taught me.
Yes.
So maybe I can look at the sun first and then follow
So-
that step.
So I'm going to invite Jeff to say, if you don't mind, Jeff, say a few words, if you could, about the structure you laid out for observations. He had a whole set of dimensions on what
Mhm.
to encourage kids to look at. Do you remember that, Jeff? You talked to-
Yeah, I mean, we've been going back and forth on how to unfurl it. So you're kind of hitting into what we've been debating. Our current order is they actually go to the moon first and they observe some of the radical stuff on the moon, and then they go to Earth control before the other what if Earths. That's partially just because that's been like that. We've been questioning how much of that is good. There is a baseline quest where we invite them. They actually don't ask them to look at the sun, but I can add that now that you've given me that. They check gravity and atmosphere and electromagnetic fields. They check some things on that already. The general approach to what your question is, though, is either a NPC or a quest tells them to do something or pay attention to something, or a human in the real life classroom tells them. And I noticed that when the kids are like together in UNCC, like the boys read nothing. Like there was going to be they're not going to pay attention to the dumb little quests in the game. Their friends right there. There's the cool game in front of them. Like the instructor has so much more power to direct their attention than the game does. And so that's kind of why we're trying to create this sort of curriculum that can adapt to your environment. When you have an individual learner at home, it works really well to have the game tell them what to do. When you have a classroom, it works way better when you have the instructors sort of helping to guide that process. And teachers will know their kids and what they're going to respond to. So I think that's where I would want to leave it, and whoever the facilitator is, either the parent or the teacher, on how to guide that. I don't know if does that answer your question on how to get them to pay attention to it?
Just sounds like you put a lot of thought into it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
super-
really-
yeah,
I
I
really-
really appreciate it.
I really
And yet it's still a constant work in progress, you know?
Yeah. That's how we are, though. Permanently beta, you know? Like I want it to always be improving. That's the
Hi,
idea.
Hannah.
Okay.
Cool. All right, well, thanks again, you guys. Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Good to meet / see people.
Yeah, I love all the modeling that you guys are doing for like
Yeah.
every user experience.